Hi, my name is Rachel Thompson. I'm a member of the Greater Lehigh Valley Writers Group. I write science fiction, fantasy, social satire, and historical fiction. And what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to read a selection from the Greater Lehigh Valley Writers Group anthology. And this anthology is from 2015. Later on, I will be reading other of my stories from other Greater Lehigh Valley Group anthologies. At the end of this, I'm going to answer the question, where did the idea come from? And let me open up here. I'm going to read direct from Greater Lehigh Valley Writers Group, Anthology 2015. This is called Mary Cook and the Railwaymen. Seamus Lockport was proud and stiff, a man not given to dainties or dandies. It was 1850 and he still wore knee breeches and wool stockings. The bulk of his possessions were handed down from his revered sire. Black waistcoats and wool breeches. The white linen ruffled shirts was what Seamus made do with from the old godmongers left behinds. There ain't nothing moth-eaten, Grandpa had said from his deathbed, so Seamus took his clothes. Mary hated her husband's manner of dress. A man dressed like a preacher, yet proceeding like the devil, was plain hypocritical. Waste not, want not, Seamus would quote when she eyed him as a fool. No other farmer in Virginia looked as forthright or ridiculous while plowing as Mary's husband. He waited in the shadows of the porch. The Appalachian homestead was in the sun, but Amos gave light no quarters, though it persisted. Their flat log farmhouse was bleached as gray as his good eye. He was a sight, Mary thought, underneath that ugly felt topcoat, which made him bigger, thicker, and meaner. He was a sapling thin. He puffed himself imposing for a reason. Railwaymen were coming again. He and Mary brushed the dirt out of his black and gray bob wire hair. It hung below the collar, lank and dry as last year's funeral wreath. He put on a new hat, a beaver fur top hat, the same one he took last spring when a railway surveyor came calling. When Seamus ran him off, the fool left it behind. Can't be too careful. Robbers and thieves roaming the land. Won't you, gentlemen? Oh, I'm sorry. I missed a page. Sorry. The Lockport spread was on the flat half of Bear Mountain, well above bottomland in Long Hollow that ran between mountain fingers, a likely spot for a railway pass. Folks down in Creek Bottom wanted that train, but Seamus wouldn't have it. He wouldn't split his man for any man or country. God had bequeathed it to him, was his offset reasoning. Mary didn't think much of God reasoning that weren't in the good book. She read it regular, he didn't. Mary Cook, Seamus called. Bring my pistols. They're a comin'. Mary herself was bred a good farmer's wife, bright and bright as a polished silver, father used to say. She was happy enough for a woman that never bore children. Still, she loved the little children. She gladly helped others, like the book said, until Seamus found out. Even so, folks in Creek Bottom called her a stout woman, God-fearing, and she was. She had to be. She plowed and picked and slaughtered hogs and tended the smokehouse. She put up as many cans as the harvest allowed with nary a complaint, all the while keeping God's word. At the general store the week before, she told Molly Wells, good hard work is God's blessing it is. But Mary did complain from time to time, winking at Molly. She went on to say, I like hard work, I do, I oft times say, but truth to tell, it doesn't like hard things. I doesn't like hard things. Lord save me from pistols and powder and that hard Lockport way. She'd say more. It wasn't her place to talk about him or his, she wouldn't say more. It wasn't her place to talk about him or his bearing or his beating her for wrong-headed reasons. Cherry-picked verses drawn from Lockport's tinted well fled from her tongue. She would not blaspheme. Down below, folks thought Mary a sweet soul. She was anything but this morning. No, she was boiling over sour. His two 69 caliber flintlock pistols lay on her clean kitchen table. Seamus left them where he loaded them. She hated the sight of them. They spooked her. Grandpa had killed Indians with them. Those heirlooms did murder. That Seamus loved them, made Mary hate them even the more. Mary Cook, bring me my gun, Seamus called from the porch, a pinch higher. Mary came to the door dangling flintlocks by trigger guards, holding them away like rotten trout. He snatched them, split his long coat, and tucked each pistol either side of into a wide belt. He weighed, he, uh, he wedged a coat tail behind each gun, making his flintlocks into raptor wings. How many railroad men you gonna run off before they send an army? She said. You can't chase off progress forever. Never mind, woman, he lowered his voice. I have an idea. God willing, if they don't get back to Philadelphia, why, the bosses will stop sending such robbers around. He had that look in his eye, like Grandpa when he talked about killing Indians. It scared her. She had seen it before, most recently last spring, aimed at her when Seamus made her wash the bloody clothes late one night. But Seamus, hush, woman, they're in earshot. Two upright men riding fine horses drew near, horses bigger and stronger than Seamus's draft animals. The men wore north clothes, back north clothes, riding coats, and tall, soft leather riding boots. The younger man had his pants tucked in. The older one wore a bowler hat and a handlebar mustache. Fine specimens they were. Seamus dead-eyed the holster belts. They both carried revolving percussion pistols. Each man had 12 shots to his one. The younger, a long-haired man, had the newfangled Henry rifle, like the one everyone was admiring at the trading post. It was poking out of his luggage bright as you please. There wasn't any pack mule carrying surveying tools like before. The man with the mustache swooped back his duster. Shiny new revolvers he had, not old misfiring junk, one on the other hip and a pepper box Derringer bulging in his waist pocket. Oh, his watch pocket. Name's Tom Fix. This here's Bart Swiftwing, half Indian. We're Pinkerton detectives. The Pennsylvania Railroad aims to make right all this trouble regarding company's surveyors. Tom Fix tipped his hat. The other hat rested. The other hand rested on his pistol butt. You ain't fixing to make no trouble here, are you, mister? Bart added. His dark eyes shone confidence. He lightly brushed the Colt's handle. Well, no, sir, Seamus lied. Don't mind these pistols. A man can't be too careful. Robbers and thieves roaming the land. Won't you gentlemen come in for a meal? He didn't wait for an answer. Mary Cook, stoke the fire. We have company. The Pinkerton boys dismounted and tied their horses to the porch rail. They came in, but stood on the edge in the front room where Seamus pulled his pistol until Seamus pulled his pistols and placed them on the pegs dowed into the stone fireplace wall. The guns hung by their trigger guards above a chestnut mantel. His Hawkins sharpshooter and the Pennsylvania flintlock hung higher above, pretty as you please. He kept them well. The archway led directly into the kitchen. The fireplace was open to both sides. A black iron kettle hung over the hearth above a low coal fire. Mary's Franklin stove was already lit and its iron griddle hot, so she busied herself cooking. The men sat and talked. Seamus gave them the best chairs made by his hands, and he told his usual tales about the Indian massacre further up the hollow and how his grandfather had gunned down the chief. The very Pennsylvania rifle yonder over the hearth, Seamus said. He didn't mention that he was a crack shot with it himself. Mary turned and stood aside with plates and hands. Mary, get them victuals set. Mary laid down a mess of scrambled eggs, fresh cut pork belly, thick and fried crisp. From the cupboard, she got new churned butter, jam, and a loaf of bread that she had made that morning. The table was fully loaded. She laid down a mess of scrambled eggs, fresh cut. Oh, I just read that. Much obliged, Miss Lockport, Tom Fix said, taking a fork in his hand. Smells like heaven. You have a good wife, sir, said Bart Swiftwing. The Lord provides, Seamus said, and he takes away. Seamus, like before, made them feel to home. That's how he set the trap, she thought. He had them primed like a musket splash pan, over-fried fish in a barrel. Mary felt heartsick as such revelations unfolded. Out in the parlor, he finished with his usual Indian story, the one that kept the townsfolk scared off. He told of the Indian's ghost up in the hollow and the hauntings. Bragged he kept bragged he'd kept them off for all those years. He bragged he had kept them off for all those years. Prayers and supplications unto the Lord. I'm a hedge against spirits, Seamus said. If it weren't for me, evil'd flood the dell like spoiled honey. Best you don't go up. Lord's my witness. Some that go up there never come back. Others seen things they wish they hadn't. Well, sir, Tom Fix said, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't go see. For the company, I thank ye for your hospitality. Tim Fix tipped his bowler to Mary. There's bad magic up there yonder, Seamus warned. Bart here's half-breed. Got powerful Indian magic. Ain't that right, Bart? Bart cast a crooked smile at Seamus and patted his brand new Colt Navy. The two men made for the door. Seamus saw them out. Mary thought those detectives didn't believe Seamus. Sorely suspicious they were. They were. They weren't like they weren't like the superstitious bottomlanders of them ragged mountain men that trapped and hunted everywhere around except here. She worried Seamus's hospitality had its effect. With a good meal in them, they'd be relaxed, off guard. Still, Mary didn't think Seamus's unusual tricks would work on them boys. Those were sophisticated fighters, hard men, and no fools, no doubt about it. Seamus stood on the porch until they had gone uphill out of sight. Mary watched her husband from the kitchen archway and wondered how she let herself get tangled up with such a particular man. But she knew the answer. Grandpa had forced the marriage, an arrangement between families. A young girl had no right to question. Her parents were kindly and easily bullied by the elder Lockport. She was just 14. Still, after 25 years, she couldn't forget that murder in Grandpa's eyes. That's what turned them. That's what turned her parents. Since they heard more railroad men were coming, he let Grandpa's lineage full out. Mary went weak in the knees, but her heart beat stronger. He entered the kitchen and sat for a cup of bitter coffee, same as Grandpa drank, a good wife to a bad man. She was sick of it. You want your bloody buckskins? Mary asked. He dressed like a dead Indian's ghost to scare folks when they got close. Not this time, he said. I've come to wit's end. Time I show them fancy dandies, no railroad man can take what God rightfully gives me. Whoops, excuse me while I turn the page. Grandpa took this land, Mary said coldly. God had nothing to do with it. Lord's got mysterious ways, Seamus said, his voice sharp. Shut your mouth. What knows you of the Lord's work? I'm the preacher's son, by God. Bring me my rifles. Son of a murderer, Mary said as she pulled them off the wall. Seamus sat and busied himself loading the long guns. He had time. He knew every path and shortcut no horse would tread. Mary thought of his remarks and fumed silently. She knew the good book better than him. All he took from it was justification. He used what suited him. He beat her saying it was the Lord's command. And now he made ready to kill for God's sake. Grandpa's rotten apple fell on fertile ground. Mary was bent over the dishes when Seamus's chair scraped the wood plank floor. She didn't turn. His boots marched out the back door. She couldn't bear to watch him go. She got busy cleaning. She cleaned everything in the kitchen and the front bedrooms, though nothing was dirty. She cleaned to take her mind off of him, but she couldn't wash that look, his cold eyes, out of her mind. She thought of all the men that went up into the hollow and how many truly had never come back. She couldn't deny it any longer. Seamus had killed before. In the distance, the Hawkins boomed like a cannon. A moment later, the crack of a smaller rifle sent shivers through her. Mary asked herself, what's worse, the sin of murder or the sin of letting a murderer kill unanswered? Mary took the pistols down off their pegs, still loaded. She took the powder horn too and settled onto the bent wood rocker on the far side of the hearth. She cocked each flintlock hammer one click and stocked the flash pans. Primed, she pulled the hammers all the way back. She balanced them on her lap as not to spill the powder. Thus she waited. It wasn't long before Seamus burst through the back door, shouting, "Mary, get my pistols. Those boys are slick. Only winged him, Mary." Seamus set his rifles on the kitchen table with a hard thump. "I need reloading. Where's my store?" Mary had hid the tin of balls and patches. The horn was what was with her still. "In the barn," she lied. "No time. By God, Mary Cook, bring my pistols." Seamus screamed. "No, Seamus, get them yourself," she replied from the parlor, straining to keep her voice even. Seamus stomped into the front room the way he always did before a beating. Mary pulled. Flint struck steel. The sound was an avalanche. 100 boulders cracking as many trees, all at once. A thick cloud smoked the room. It smelled of rotten eggs and brimstone. Within the smoke, his form was the devil's own shadow, a specter still standing. She had missed. Seamus groped for the iron poker on the hearth side. He took it up and swung savagely. Mary sat low in his chair. The blow went over her. Splinters of granite cut her face. She pulled again. The hammer fell. This time a 69 caliber ball sent Seamus flying. He hit the gable wall so hard chunks of mud caulk rained like hail. The house was double full of sulfur smoke. Mary fell to her knees. With eyes stinging, she crawled outside. She rolled down the steps, coughing and choking. She let loose a breakfast and rolled away from the mess before fainting. Mary laid there on the turf. How long, only God knew. The clip-clop of a horse roused at her, and she regained some senses. Tom Fix was back, walking his steed. Bart was slumped in the saddle. Mary's head cleared quick. She sat up, spilling her tale. "He tried to kill me. I wouldn't give him his pistol. Swung a fire iron at me, he did," Mary said, with her lips quivering. She never cried when he beat her, and she wouldn't cry now. "Shot him dead, I did." "Don't worry none, ma'am," Tom said. "I'll go inside and cover him. You did no wrong. Watch over Bart, will you?" "Nicked my calf is all," Bart said, looking down from his partner's horse. "Smokey didn't fare so well. He's up yonder, dead, I expect." Mary was inclined to good works and never could stand idle when there was mending work. She led Bart around to the back, helped him dismount, set him on the stoop, and went about tending his wound behind the kitchen. He was not split bad, but the gash was full of dirt. She picked it clean, poured on corn liquor, and dressed it proper. Old Judge McMahon didn't see fit to charge Mary with any crime, especially as the country sheriff and the Pickerton men went back up and found bodies. One was Indian Jake, the missing trapper. The others were railroad men, and some too long dead to figure out who they were. In court, Mary asked the judge to grant her a new name. Her maiden name she could not abide, as Seamus called her that. Seamus's name, Lockport, wasn't fit for an outhouse. With the money she got from selling her farmland, Mary Justice lived well in town. She took in Indian Jake's widow, Heartfeather, and the widow's little boy and baby girl. Mary treated them like her own kin. Some folks didn't like it, but she was a stout woman. Others said it was high time somebody set right what Grandpa Lockport had done wrong so long ago. And that's the end of that story. And I will answer the question, where did this story come from? I was on a road trip going down the Shenandoah Valley. I forget the name of the super highway there. And as I look up into the mountains, what did I see? I saw an old cabin. And being a person that's somewhat familiar with architecture, I realized it was a very old cabin. It was probably original homestead. And while I was looking at it, I wondered who could have possibly lived there and what was it like to live up there on that mountain. And that vision of that little cabin on the side of the mountain is where this story came from. And I hope you like it, and I will see you again soon at the book fair. And stop.